to bring the Gentile people together with the Jewish Christian believers so they would all be one. That's what he wanted. Unity. Let's just read this section here. I'm going to read verses 17 through 20a, the first part, because it kind of breaks off right there. Verse 17, and when he had come to Jerusalem, Paul went, the brethren received him gladly. And on the following day, Paul went with us to James, and all the elders were present. When he had greeted them, he told them in detail the things which God had done among the Gentiles through his ministry. This was exciting stuff. And when they heard it, what did they do? They glorified the Lord. They were pretty excited about that. They should be. You know, the we and us, I mean, here Paul has Gentile people with him. As a matter of fact, Luke is one. Luke's with him. There's nothing like a live testimony. Somebody saying, I have come to faith in Christ. I am one with you. The brethren received him gladly. Most likely, hey, because Paul was bringing a financial collection from the Gentile churches to help the Christian Jewish believers in Jerusalem. He had a nice gift for them. They were in poverty. They were under persecution. James, who's James here? It's the Lord's brother. He's one of the elders of the church. And by now, he has already written the book of James, and that's already in circulation for about 10 years. He's a ruling elder in the church. Paul shares all these great testimonies of the Gentiles coming to faith in Jesus. All these experiences that he had in Asia and Greece. I mean, my goodness, we went through the book of Acts. We've seen it. And I'm sure as they listened, they were like on the edge of their seats. Are you kidding me? They glorified the Lord. This was a great beginning here as Paul went to Jerusalem. But this might be the only bright spot in this whole story of Paul's visit. Let's read on, verses 20b through 22. And they said to him, you see, brother, how many myriads of Jews there are who have believed. And they are all zealous of the law. There's thousands of believers in Jerusalem. But they have been informed about you, that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake the law of Moses, saying that you ought not to circumcise their children, nor to walk according to the customs. What then? The assembly must certainly meet, for they will hear that you have come. Barclay said this, the leaders accepted Paul and they saw his hand of God on Paul's life, but rumors had been spread about Paul. And these rumors were that Paul had told them to forsake the law of Moses. Paul never did that. It was simply not true. But the rumors were out there. They went out. Obviously, many Jewish believers believed these rumors without really knowing the facts. These folks went from joyful celebration here of what was going on over these Gentiles coming to faith. They focused on a rumor. The air is going out of Paul's balloon. Paul was misunderstood and misinterpreted. Paul did not tell the Jews to stop their customs. Paul simply declared that they weren't necessary for salvation. Remember, he took Timothy, and what did he do with Timothy? Circumcised him. Why? So he would have an open door to minister to Jewish people. It wasn't for justification. finding common things really with others help us in our ministry to other people. That was Paul's motive, but Paul was not against the law. He was just for something, and that was grace. That's what he was for. The rumor wasn't true about Paul, but rumors are many times taken for fact. And rumors run fast. Chuck Swindoll said this: the local church is one of Satan's favorite seed beds for growing a weedy crop of misinformation. Satan tills the thoughts like soil, mixing in a shovel full of good intentions, a bag full of prejudice, and a few pellets of pride. Then he scatters an accusing word here, an inflammatory comment there, and waits for them to germinate. One of the characteristics of rumors and gossip is seen here in this passage. Swindoll says the person being talked about is never invited to the discussion. Oh, man. Paul had been miles away, right? Going to prison, being run out of towns, without knowing that his mission and character were being run to the ground by gossip. What then, they say, or what can be done? That's what they're saying. What can be done now? They will hear that you have come. One pastor said this: I can tell you what can't be done for Paul. His character cannot be completely exonerated. His mission and ministry have been clouded with suspicion. Kent Hughes writes this illustration. This is pretty good. A legendary story of a peasant woman who repeated a bit of gossip about a neighbor, and with a short time, the whole town knew the story. The slandered person was deeply hurt and unhappy, but then the lady responded for spreading the rumor, learned that it was completely untrue. So he went to a wise old sage to find out what she could do about the damage now. After listening to her problems, the wise man said, go to the marketplace, purchase a fowl, have it killed, then on your way home, pluck its feather, one by one, drop them in front of each home in the village. Though surprised by this unusual advice, the woman did as she was told. The next day she informed the man that she had done as instructed. Now, he said, go collect all those feathers and bring them back to me. The woman retraced her footsteps, but to her dismay, the wind had blown the feathers away. After searching all day long, she returned with only 2 or 3 in her hand. You see, said the wise old man, it's easy to drop your words, but impossible to bring them all back. Unfounded or not, the rumors were spreading about Paul. It would taint his ministry and mission. They may have thought there is no wonder Paul got in so much trouble out there in Gentile land. What can be done? Paul could say, who told them? Where's the evidence? Why wasn't I contacted? You may have thought, I can't believe it's gone this far. How could you allow it to go on? Paul didn't run from his accusers. He faced them. And let's look at the next verses, because the elders submitted a plan to try to fix it. Verse 23. Therefore do what we tell you. They're talking to Paul. We have 4 men who have taken a vow. Take them and be purified with them and pay their expenses, so that they may shave their heads, and that all may know that those things of which they were informed concerning you are nothing, but that you yourself also walk orderly and keep the law. But concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written and decided that they should observe no such thing, except that they should keep themselves from things offered to idols, from blood, from things strangled, and from sexual immorality. Then Paul took the men, and the next day, having been purified with them, Paul did it, entered the temple to announce the expiration of the days of purification, at which time an offering would be making for each one of them. You know, Paul had been around all the Gentiles, and I wanted to go in the temple. Felt like he was pretty polluted to be doing that, so Paul agreed to do it. Now listen, Paul did this, and some commentators say this: Paul should not have done that. Some simply say it was okay, and it didn't violate the truth of the gospel. You know, we can all be Monday morning quarterbacks, right? You heard the term? Someone who passes judgment on somebody, criticizing them after the event. Don't judge a quarterback when he's got a bunch of 300-pounders coming at him ready to crush him. And so did this help Paul? Going through all this trouble, the purification and doing all this, it just got worse. Let's follow on, see what happens. Acts 21, 27 through 36. And when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews from Asia, seeing him in the temple, stirred up the whole crowd and laid hands on him, crying out, "Men of Israel, help! This is a man who teaches all men everywhere against the people, the law, in this place. And furthermore, he also brought Greeks into the temple and has defiled this holy place." Untrue. For they had previously seen Trophimus, the Ephesian, with him in the city, because they seen this guy around him. He must have took him in the temple. Something they seen. Assumed a whole bunch of stuff. And the city was disturbed, and the people ran together, seized Paul, dragged him out of the temple, and immediately the doors were shut. Now as they were seeking to kill him, news came from the commander of the garrison that all Jerusalem was in an uproar. He immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down to them, and when they saw the commander of the soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. Then the commander came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains, and he asked who he was and what he had done. And some of them among the multitude cried one thing and some another, and so he couldn't ascertain the truth because of the tumult. He commanded him to be taken into the barracks. Then he reached the stairs, and he had to be carried by the soldiers because of the violence of the mob. For the multitude of the people followed after, crying, "Away with him." Well, Agabus the prophet was right. He said he was going down to Jerusalem, going to be trouble. He nails it every time. And that day has arrived. Away with him. Do you remember those words anywhere else in Scripture? Away with him. When Jesus was arrested, what did they say? Away with him. Away with him. That's what they said. They yelled it. Paul had a multitude of misunderstandings that ended even with physical violence from the mob. Why not just quit, Paul? Paul didn't quit because he had a passion for people, the love for his nation, and desire to speak the gospel. Paul would write, "Oh, that I may know him." Doesn't that sound great? Isn't that a great prayer? "Oh, that I may know him." Wonderful. We always say prayer, "Oh, that I may know him." But that verse goes on, "and the fellowship of his suffering." Christ suffered. Someone this last week lost a mother. One daughter was trying to plan the memorial and everything. She took the lead. No one else was doing it, so she took the lead trying to help out. And everybody started criticizing her because of this or that. You know how those things happen, you know. Sometimes it just gets messy. And I said to her, the one who tries to lead is the one who takes the hits. I see that over and over again. We've done motorcycle rides. Oh, the leader always gets the criticism out there. Oh, you should have done this. Oh, you should have did that. You know, she was just brave enough to step up and do something. And she continues to do that. Matter of fact, her mother was a girl that started coming to church from Red Oak a few weeks ago. Alive and doing great. Wow, what a bless. We were just great. Margie and I were just great to communicate and see her again and reconnect. Just wonderful. Then a stroke took place and she's gone. But it's so easy to criticize a leader. There's a story of Telemachus that I thought of. Telemachus was a monk who lived about 400 A.D. He ventured out to sea from the sea of the world. He wanted to learn about people away from the monastery. And he followed a large group of people because they were all heading somewhere, and he followed them, and he watched in horror as these gladiators were there just killing each other, and the whole group was saying, yeah, yelling very, very loud. He was horrified at what was